Hemshech Ayin Beis, Volume 1, we're up to chapter 122 on page 236. Middle of discourse 31. Yochel Yosef, this topic. So in explaining the third meaning of Sfiris from the word Sapir, Behirus, Sfiris Behirus, the Rabbi Rashab, as we discussed at length, is essentially moving upward in the interface, first explaining Behirus as being the containers as opposed to Levushim, the garments which are concealers, so they're revealers, the containers. Then explaining that they're the Pnimis HaKelim, the inner dimension of the containers, as opposed to the outer being more the personality connected more to the identity of the entity, like Chesed or Gvura, and the Pnimis HaKelim are more transparent. Then, moving on, that the real Behirus is in Eir, because Eir is fundamentally Gili, revelation, and illuminating. And now, in the last chapter, Kuf Chafal, that in Eir itself, the ultimate, that even in Eir itself, once it's in Atzilus, it's already in a diminished state. It's still divine, but it's in a diminished state. So to really say Gilim in Etzem, something that is revealing, the most revealing would be Eir that's higher than Atzilus. So just a few words on this thing called revealing. Basically what we're getting from this is, the question is, what is reality? What do we see? So, obviously you can see something that's complete sheker. A magician makes a magic trick. It's false. It's a sleight of hand. It's just an optical illusion. There are things that are false. People lie. These things are completely false. So what you see is completely not what you get. I'm just going to extremes. So that's not just levushim, that's not just garments, that's complete deception. Then we call Sfas Emes, a little truth. In other words, like they say, every lie has some truth in it. So there is a little glimpse of something a little more revealing. And as you go through the process, you can literally reveal more and more and more. Then you can come to a point where there's no sheker, it's not a lie, but you also don't see the truth. It's like the Frierdiker Rebbe once told the Rebbe Tzachai Mushke that the Emes darf nicht einmal sagen, aber liegen Tamen kämen sagen. So it means that you don't have to always tell the truth, but a lie you should never say. So you could have a neutral situation where you don't have a lie, but you also don't have ultimate total truth. So you could have something that's neutral. You come into a room and you'll say, what's going on in the room? I don't know. Everything's concealed. Then you come to start having actual revelation of truth. You start seeing what's really going on. So essentially, if you want to really put it in those terms, it's levels of how much we really see is going on. So at the beginning, you start seeing a little more. So if someone says, what is a human being? So if you put on a mask and you put on a costume, you masquerade as something that's not, they don't see necessarily anything about you. On the contrary, they'll see the wrong you. A person who's one type of personality can put on a clown suit and be a completely different personality. But then let's say you can dress in garments that are more distinguished and more fitting and tailored to the individual. So it reveals a bit more. But how much more? How much can garments? You look at, on the other hand, at the person's faculties, let's say, their arms and their legs, how they use their hands, how they speak. So it reveals more. That's something that's a reality. But how much of that does it reveal? Also, you could, as I said, a person could lie. A person could also go through maneuvers. But you go to the next level, you see, let's say a person is asleep, or you see a child. So looking at someone's faculties does tell you something about the person. But how much? So there is some element of behirus, what we call revealing, but it's not much. You go deeper and you start analyzing or looking at a person's actual keches hanefesh, not the body, the limbs and organs. So then you start seeing more. But if someone will say, how much of the soul is expressed in your faculties? Only a part. As you continue to move, containers, at some point you come to a limit. The containers are revealing, but they're not totally revealing. They conceal more than they reveal. Or they conceal why they reveal. If you're able to enter into the energy itself level, like, what does the neshama look like? You're able to recognize it. So now you're already getting into seeing the true personality of a person. The same is true for that matter of every object. If you're able to start seeing the subatomic particles, the energy within it, you start seeing its real personality. But at the end of the day, even the energy in something is also confined to this item. So let's say the energy of Atzilus is still not Atzilus, like he explained. It's still after a tzimtzum. So it's true that it's a reflection. It's a Gilui Helam. You can't say, for example, that the soul's energy is not revealing a higher level of energy that's beyond the soul. That's why it's Gilui Helam. One second. But yet, if you compare it to the real source, it still has some limitations. So even if you're getting a revealing energy that's revealing much, until it's not revealing the whole picture, it's still not the total transparent channel. So basically what I just described is you could have a situation that's total concealment, or even distortion. You could have a little revelation, a little more, more and more. And ultimately it says, Ikus Vidus Abihidus is a level that is not confined by anything. So to say that an artist is expressing himself in Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, yes, that's definitely revealing. It's not concealing. It's telling you it's a piece of art. That the Eibishter reveals himself through this creation that he created. Absolutely. That he reveals even higher levels of Gvul, like you said, Eira Gvul. Absolutely. You go all the way to the source. It reveals to you that the Eibishter has the power to create a world like ours. That means that just like there's Chachma in this world, you have to say the Eibishter has Chachma. So it's called Chacham v'lei b'chacham yediyah. You can even come to that point. But ultimately, if you really want to know what's beyond the Eibishter's Chacham and Bina, what's beyond this piece of art, and what's beyond the source of this piece of art, there only Eira Bligvul really does that. Because Eira Bligvul just tells you it's a gili of the etzem itself, that's not limited or confined in any particular way. So at the end of the day, one second. So even though he said, that the Asad love it, you'll have in Havai de Latata, which means in the energy, in the air, as it manifests in Atzilus, that will become Elikim, which means you'll no longer have the Hester of Elikim, the concealer. Now it will be a revealer. Havai is a revealer. But what will it reveal? Then it will reveal Havai de Leil, that's even higher, like what he's calling here the Eira Ein Seif. But that too is, number one, is manifesting through Havai de Latata. And the revelation doesn't come from Havai de Latata, from the lower level. It comes from above, like he said in the Kitzur, Mumayla. It just shines through. So, to say, for example, that the Asad Lavi, let's say in Asad Lavi, I spoke about the teacher, a student is able to understand the teacher's mind. Or your neshama is revealed. So your neshama is revealing even higher levels than the soul. But it's not that the neshama is the higher levels. It's just transparent. The higher level is ultimately a higher level. And the Gilui Etzem is ultimately the place where the true transparency and true revealing and revelation takes place. That's briefly the Nakud here. Which one? It's through our work that we refine. As we refine our existence and our containers, we become containers for all of this.
So it definitely has to be a container? Every item is a container, correct? You can't have it...
I didn't say that. I said that for you to be able to receive it, you need to be refined enough to receive it, or else it'll pass you by. I mean, how could...
So my question is, I wanted to ask you was, by the neshama, you said how you could access certain levels of the neshama. How could you, that's not the norm. How do you go and beyond that? Where do you cross? Where's the crossover where you could really see the job, the dilu? How do you do it?
I don't know if there's a one-place crossover. I think it's a process. It's a process, and what he's being speaking about, Aveda, it starts with Aveda of a person. Aveda of a person that he dedicates himself. We'll go back to self-interest. As long as a person's self is the dominant force, he's not going to be a keli to anything outside of himself. If your cup is full, there's no room for anything else to go in. So for the cup to be able to receive, it has to be the first yesod of everything is bittul. The more bittul a person has, the more they are able to receive those higher powers. That's the bottom line. That's the formula.
It says
a Baal Gaiva, and the Eibishter cannot rest under one canopy. There's no room for two. So it's all up to what you receive. If you don't have the receiving element, it would be like someone singing to you a beautiful song, which has so much power to it, but you're busy talking, or you're busy with whatever, moving around. So the song is being played, but you can't hear it because you're busy with all your own sounds.
That's my question. Let's say you're not busy, but you never heard that song, or you're not song inclined. How could you get more? How could you?
I'm saying you have to first establish that you're not busy. I don't agree necessarily. Busy doesn't necessarily mean that. Busy means that you're distracted. You're busy with other things that don't allow this to flow in. So I think that's a big one, because most of us are busy with other things. Our mind is in other places. People have all kinds of taigas, concerns. If you're saying if a person has nothing, no concerns, and just empty, and they're just this, then the question is, what are they doing all day? You have to ask what they do. I mean, each person has to look at this themselves. There's no one general, but briefly, the point is that you have to be able to be receptive to more. So, what do you mean by not busy?
Not being distracted.
Right, that's what it means. Whatever it is.
How could he be a keli to receive that? That's what he was saying.
I just said there was one word.
You don't know nothing. Let's say you know absolutely nothing, and someone comes and sings a beautiful song. So you hear a beautiful song, but you don't really can differentiate between the song, three songs. You don't understand. My question is, how do you?
We have, thank God, we have a Torah mitzvahs. There's obligations every day what to do. To sit around and do nothing is also not. Well, the first step, as I said to you, there could be no distractions. More distractions, the less you can receive. The second thing is what to do. The Torah says, in the morning you wake up, you say Maidani, and then you brachas, and then you daven, or you learn chassidus verse, however the order. If a person follows that, they're basically creating a keli of themselves to hear the music. Now obviously, if you just don't have anything, that's why we have chinuch. It's true. If there are no distractions, but you don't know how to listen to music because you don't understand it, it's also a problem. But first problem is get rid of distractions. The second one is getting educated to appreciate what all this is. So we learn about Mashiach for the aha. So the more you learn about it, the more familiar you are. Once you're familiar, it becomes easier to relate to. The reason we learn chassidus is in order for us to be able to relate to Elokus. It gives us language. The more you learn it, the more you're able to relate. So you're asking, it's basically the Allah Beis of that's what we were given a Torah for. God sent us to this world. We're distracted by many things. We have to try to eliminate as much distraction and try to bring in kedusha, holiness. This is what creates a keli, that makes you a keli for higher levels. Why two people, let's say, sitting in front of the Rebbe or in front of a great teacher, one will come away and only know 5% what he said, another one will hear 50%. It's two main factors involved. How much they're distracted. If one of them was busy doing other things, or in his mind was somewhere else, he's only going to hear less. The second thing is how much education they have. The one who's learned more, the one who's prepared himself more, the one who's
one's going to walk away inspired.
The one who's like more familiar with the ideas. 1 second.
But one is less.
So let me just finish this point. So the second thing is chinuch, a person who learns more. I know myself, when I learned the Mamorim, let's say, of that Shabbos, and then I heard the Rebbe speak, because I was ready, I saw ideas that he was already speaking about, so it was easy to understand. So it's basically two things. To make a keli, you have to clean out the dirt and you have to pour something in. That's the bottom line. It's called tshuva tata and tshuva ilah. So the first thing is you have to clean out and leave some emptiness, meaning I'm receptive. If you're filled with all kinds of other things and turbulence, you're not going to be receptive. And the second thing is you have to be acclimated. The more you're familiar, that's the whole point of the Eretz and Kalim. That's how you build Kalim. Simple process. How does one educate their children? How does one educate students? One thing is you want to discipline them. They should be able to focus and not be distracted by other things. Another thing is you want to give them tools of how do you learn something. How do you read a piece of this? You learn a method. There's a method to the madness, as they say. There's an approach. And the more you develop it, the more you master it. Look, anything in this world, l'havdil, in science, in sports, in business, nothing has happened by itself. Anyone that's an expert is because they paid their dues. They paid their dues. What does dues mean? There was mistakes made. They learned from them. They grew. They were humbled. Experience cannot be transferred. You can't transfer experience to someone. You can tell them. If you work with an experienced person, you're going to learn a lot of shortcuts if you're listening, because you'll see, hey, this person did it before me. You don't have to make the same mistake again. But real experience, you'll learn from that. But real experience comes with the time, with the dues you pay. To me, that in the language of Chassidus is refining our containers. That's refined kelim. And that's something that cannot be given as a gift even. You can give a gift ahead of him, but you can't give somebody experience. And as I said, there's the other aspect. There's the aspect of getting rid of distraction. And the other aspect is that type of experience. So overall, it's a training process. The training begins from the second you're born. With healthy parents, they help you develop healthy routines. If unfortunately, let's say, have not a situation that's healthy, it gets harder because we may have very bad habits. Bad habits obviously block the process. So it's a training. What you're asking is simply just like if you asked me if I was teaching finance here, how do you master the art of? Obviously, I'm not talking about things that are unpredictable. There are rules to the game, and you learn them through education and then through experience. CPA. Someone just told me they became a CPA. It takes 2 years. They have to work under another accountant before they can get a license to accounting. And accounting is not medicine like life and death. Because the fact of the matter is, just like a doctor, the doctors, the residences, and all that, there's something which we call shimush. A Rav can have all the ideas. Someone can learn, be the biggest genius. He needs to have shimush. He needs to have experience working with another Rav who has experience. And not only experience in general, the truth is has to have in that specialty. You'll find Rabbonim who will tell you, I'm not pasking in Yanim of Kedushin. Dinei Mominus I can pass, like Rav and Shmuel, and so on. Because his shimush could be he has the knowledge. He may have the knowledge. But the shimush, his experience, is not in that area. And experience has the... What I'm saying is pretty basic. I'm just applying it. The same thing is the only thing is nobody has turned God into this same type of thing that you need to be trained to understand God. But you do need to be trained. Now, of course, everybody's got Amunah Pshuta. We have all kinds of tools within us. To me, if I could put it briefly, Chassidus is a blueprint, is a training manual of appreciating Chassidus, godliness. It's a training manual that retrains how we think, how we speak, and how we act, aligned. That's what it comes down to. Okay? And if you want more specific, as I've said several times, it's always good to move that away from there. A good personal mashpia, we discuss this with. Because then you could customize it. It has to be customized. In general terms, we get the picture here. I mean, this too can be customized. Everything we're learning can be customized. Because at the end of the day, it's a model for life. That's what it comes down to. That's Chassidus. Torah in general, but Chassidus particularly, a model for life. And to retrain how we think, speak, and act. Aligned to the way, a divine process, a divine method, as opposed to a human method. And if it was taken seriously like that, then it's not the equivalent. It's as good and better than any system out there. But people are going to school and spending millions and billions of dollars to train themselves. And what? It's mostly in how to use the hammers and the nails, not in how to think in a divine, real way. That's the sad part of it. So, for all the courses out there and the degrees, you don't have anyone really getting degrees in what's called, in soul medicine. Let's put it that way. We're learning soul medicine here, which of course is the root of it all, because this is where happiness resides, and love, and all the most important components that no school can give. No school can guarantee someone they're going to have a happy life, or a loving life, or be able to fulfill their potential. Or the best good schools, Ivy League schools, can teach you, will give you the tools to make a lot of money. Business, law, medicine, whatever it may be. So, we have the best kept secret here. Absolutely. That's the key. It teaches you, first of all, to think, period, and then to think different. Not everybody thinks also. Remember that. Most of us do not think. We're product of our routines and habits. I think it was Gandhi that once said a very good point. He said, be careful how you act, because how you act becomes your habit. Be careful of your habits, because how your habits will become your routines. Be careful of your routines, because your routines will become your choices. Be careful of your choices, because your choices will become your perspective. And be careful of your perspective, because your perspective will become you. I mean, not exact words, but that's the idea. So we become the other way around. Instead of you determining what the rest should be, it's your habits and your culture and the things that we become easy for us to do that shape who we are. And then the real you is who knows where. As I mentioned, look at little children, and you can see right away what the real person is like. They're always moving, they're always restless, they're always exploring, they're always excited. Tell me the first time you hear a child says, I'm bored. When they hear from adults, you never hear, even children, 1-year-old, will never be bored. They always have something to do. The bored is when they start seeing a world of adults doing all kinds of things, and now the child says, I'm bored because I can't do what you're doing, or. But anyway, bottom line is that we've got a way to go. So we're up to now. So as I said, we climbed the ladder of Behirus, which means getting into what is real. Basically, if I sum it up in simple English, how much is revealed and how much is concealed. And he's gotten to the point where only Eir HaBligvul, meaning the air higher than Atzilus, what he calls here Etzem HaKeser. The lower level of Keser, he said, what was the expression? What was the expression Etzem HaKeser? I'm not imagining it, that I know. Yeah.
The Kitzur has it.
The Kitzur has it? Okay. Maybe it was only in the Kitzur. Yeah. Yeah. Etzem HaKeser B'chinas said. So Yeshlem, he said like this. So the way Eir of Atzilus, let me backtrack. In Atzilus, the letters or the stones or the spheres, the kelim, are like written letters, and written letters are additional component, so they reveal but they also conceal, and in two ways. Number one, they conceal the core essence, of course, and even the idea that they're conveying is also in a concealed state. In the letters of Keser, the kelim of Keser are only conceal the core source, but what they reveal is total revelation. Then he says that even the core source is also revealed somewhat through those kelim, because when you are that close, when it's like engraved within the stone, it's also a revelation of the stone itself. Or like what he called Etzem Ha'er. But he said at the end of the day, it's still...
You mean Arich, no?
He doesn't say that, but you could say Arich and Atik.
I saw yesterday in my minute, there's no Kelim in Kesser.
It depends on the highest level. There's no Kelim, yeah.
In Atik, there's no Kelim.
In Atik, there's also Kelim. You could say in the highest levels of Atik. It depends which Maimer you look at.
I said clearly there's no Kelim.
I just told you. Another Maimer here, we just said there's Kelim and Kesser, so it's also clearly.
Right.
So which is clearer by you?
It's not, maybe one is an Arich, one is an Atik.
Or maybe in Atik itself there's two levels. I told you, so you'll see my one that says in Atik there's also Kelim, and then it says some places. It's relative. So one second, but once I'm reading, let's read what it says here. She says right in the middle of the page, she says, Al Kain Shamu Ikrina Behirish Shabekelim Shabekelim Etzem Eir Kameshu Ach Bechinas HaKelim Shabekeser Yesh Leimer Shazah Bechinas HaSesfiris HaKlulim Bekeser. That when you say there's Kelim and Keser, you're talking about the 10 spheres as their house. Keser is a source. Sherish and Etzolim is the root of the 10 of Pnimi. The Bechinas Eir and Sof is Bligvul and Shaychina Kelim. And their Behirus is only air. So here's where he says this is level of Atik. So he doesn't say the word Arich, but you could say that according to this, it's the so-called outer Kesser and inner Kesser, which is usually Arich and Atik. And Atik, he says clearly, there he says only the air. So that's
consistent.
Yeah, I'm just saying to you that sometimes it says in Atik there's also Kelim, it's the lower levels of Atik. Depends where you speak. If you remember earlier, we said that one of the interpretations of Yotzik Shemen, when he poured the oil, Shemen was the Gimel Rishonos of Atik that he's pouring on the stone, which would mean the stone would be the Kelim that are below those higher levels. Yeah. Generally speaking, in microcosm, macrocosm, when you say Keser of Atzilus, in the macrocosm, that's like the Eir Lifnei Tzimtzum. So Keser in general is like the levels of that are higher than the spheres and the structure of Atzilus. And generally speaking, when you speak in general terms, you say Bria, Asiya, Yitzira, Bria, Atzilus, 4 worlds, and then there's the 5th level, which is Elimus Ha'Ein Seif. You'll hear that expression. So what's Elimus Ha'Ein Seif? That's everything higher than Atzilus. In the Nefesh, it's you say the Nefesh Ruach Neshama Chai Yechida. Yechida is Elimus Ha'Ein Seif. That's everything above Atzilus, starting from Keser, going all the way back. When you break that down, you have the macrocosm. You have also Atzilus the Klolos, and you have Bria the Klolos, and Yitzir the Klolos. I've spelled this out many, many times. And then you're talking much broader. Then Ak is usually the Keser Klali, or sometimes Ak is considered Arich of the whole Seder Shtalshlus, and Atik of the whole Seder Shtalshlus is Ke'ein, right by the beginning of the Kav, where it says in Eitz Chaim. So, but in all practical terms, it's the same ideas, just on a different level. And this actually repeats many times. You could say infinite times. But we need to have something to talk about, so we define it in this type of structure. There's generally 4 or 5 levels. It's usually how the whole picture works. As I said, Bria, Atzilus, and now it's above Atzilus. That's how he's speaking here. But you could apply it. You see, he keeps going back and forth. Sometimes he speaks Kesed, then he goes back to Lifnei Tzimtzum, Shir Atzmei B'Kayach, the 10 hidden spheres. So also the 10 hidden spheres before the Tzimtzum, you could also say B'Daka is the same thing. There's how they're the root of Gvul, of Kelim, the letters. There's the root of the Eir HaGvul, the energies that are defined. There's the Eir HaBli Gvul, which would be like the Kesed that we're speaking here. And then there's even higher than that. So it could all be transferred, the same ideas, obviously in far different level. I've discussed the distinctions, because there it's all in God's so-called mind, or God's plan. After the Tzimtzum, it begins to be a real reality. Not a tangible one, but a substance. It's already, the art is beginning to flow, so to speak. So anyway, so he says, so that's what he says, that's real Behirus, therefore, is not even in the Kelim of Atzilus, Kelim of of Keser. It's in the Eir of, and that's the higher level of Keser, when the Kitzur he calls Etzem HaKeser. That's where I saw it, right, in the Keser. Yeah, he says, see, Etzem HaKeser b'chinas Eir. It looks more like Atik, yeah.
What does he
Yeah, because the point is that he wants to say it's an etzem. I mean, different words. Just wants to say an etzem. It wants to say here that it's revealing the etzem. So we're talking now. We're at the point now where the revelation has come that it's just revealing the source. He goes back to everything we've learned earlier, that there are fundamentally two types of energies that flow out of the divine. One is Gili Ha'etzem, one is Eir HaBligvul. Its role is just to express what the source wants. Or you could say, express the source, even. And there's another, that's an energy that is directed towards shaping and crafting what the source wants. Two different types of energies. Obviously they intertwine, they both come from the same source, but there's a point where each one has a different so-called function. One will become Seviv Klamen, and one will become a Malach Klamen. One will become the Makifim in our lives, and one will become the Pnimim in our lives. So for example, when you put on a talis cotton, or talis, you have the Makif, the garment, is a Makif. The Tzitzis is a Pnimi. When you sit in a sukkah, you're surrounded. The Daled Minim, the four species, is a Pnimi. So everything in Judaism, every behavior we have has a Makif and a Pnimi. These are rooted in order to teach us two lessons. One, that teaching us really bittul. Bligvul really brings out bittul in a person. Because it's not about you, it's about what the source wants. And the second is, that's makif.
That's makif, what he wants to makif.
What the divine, the Ratzon Elyon. That's exactly, nothing specific. That's the makif. And so what the Eir HaBligvul brings out from us, elicits from us awe, bittul. Like we say, you haven't said what mitzvah it is yet. You're just saying you have sanctified us with your mitzvahs. It's a transcendent energy. And then the pnimi within is what God wants, how it wants to be manifest in a specific way. Do it through this mitzvah, not this mitzvah. Do it this day, tomorrow. That's you're permeating the fine structure of existence with transcendence that's beyond existence. That's really the basic two functions. We've learned this before, and I'm just spelling it out. So, when you want clarity, revelation, revealing, where is Behirus? Real Behirus is in the Eir HaBligvul now we've gotten. There is levels of it also in the Eir HaGvul, and in the Kalim, and even in the Chetzenis Kalim, outer Kalim. But the real nature of it, in its purest form, is in the Bligvul. On the other hand, where do you have real number? Sphirus as number, as structure. You have it, of course, more in the structure element. Now, the same word Sphira has both meanings. So that's where the interface comes into play. So everything is meant to be a combination of these two forces, of Gvul and Bligvul.
It's funny that these same definitions that he's talking like Rabbi Kalim, he applies to Ur. In other words, the whole idea we were saying was the Oisi is that it's the idea how to become, even though it's a Ois, even though it's a Megala, whatever, it's still really the same thing, really the thing itself. Right? And here he's just going straight in and saying the same things to Rabbi Ur.
Well, he's not. No, he's not. Yeah, if you read it like a mathematician, it sounds like it. But that's why I just elaborated now for a half hour that two people can be listening to the same teacher, and one person only gets 5%, one person gets 70%. How do you explain that? Is that the same thing? The revelation of this person is 5% is the same as the revelation of that person 70%. Not, right? So when he's speaking about the 5%, yes, he's talking about what's being revealed in the 5%, but it's not the 70% or the 100%. So it's not just transfer. One conceals also. When someone gets, look, what you're clear about. But what you're not clear about is even more than what you're clear about. And Eir HaBligvul, everything is clear because it's a complete transparent channel. Just think about it in practical way. You could have something flowing through a pipe, and then it channels to different people. One person has a very narrow pipe, so they only get a little. The other one has a very wide pipe, so they get a lot. It's not the same thing. So he began by saying that the one with the little pipe also gets something. And then with the bigger pipe, you get more. So it's a big difference. He's not just transferring the same ideas. It's a very big difference. Written letters and engraved letters are not the same thing, even though written letters also reveal. You really have to go through here to understand slowly that there's different levels of revelation. And it's not all the same thing. It's very, very different. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, but usually you say Ur is Megala. The Eir is not master.
The problem with you when you say usually, what do you mean usually? Usually how you think about it on a daily basis? What do you mean by usually?
No, when the Chassidus talks about Eir.
Well, here's Chassidus, so you tell me. Which Chassidus you talking about? The Rebbe Rashab knows this Chassidus. So you're talking about your perception of what you've learned in the past, you should say. Maybe you should go back and see if Taka says that. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe when you learn a little closer, you realize that what you learned is not exactly... So I'm not trying to be critical, I'm just saying to you, say usually, that sounds like, you really got it mastered, and now this contradicts. I would probably submit that this is probably more accurate, and maybe your usually is a little off. Huh? Huh? No, I know everybody's gone through this table. I don't want to come across. I don't want to come across as the master or the one that's giving you. What I just said to you is the most key thing in learning Chassidus. You can knock out all the usuallys. That is the first thing. So, let me ask you something. You ever see a Keli of Atzilus before? You see a Keli of Bria? Now, tell me, how would you distinguish between a Keli of Bria and an Eir of Bria? To us, they're both Eir. They're both concepts, right? So what's a Keli? Here's a cup, and here's some water. May I use this as a demonstration? Yeah. So the water and cup are very clearly two distinct entities. Tell me how that works in a Ruchnistic world. The Ruchnis is they're both Ruchnis. The Kelim are Ruchnim and the Eiris are Ruchnim. You see what I'm saying? So you have to first review what means Keli and Eir on those levels. And then you'll realize, yes, every Keli is an Eir. Of course it's an Eir in the sense that it's Ruchnistic. But if you think of it in terms of what its role is very similar to this role. A Keli in Atzilus is not a physical container like a barrel or a pot. It's an expression of an identity. And the Eir is an expression of what God wants. That's the key difference. This is usually not taught to us. When you get to understand this, you begin to relate to more what I'm saying here. Look, Chassidus has to be learned very seriously and not just words. Because in Shulchan Aruch, when you learn the Lamates Malachas, even if you don't get the whole depth of it, bottom line is you're not allowed to cook, you're not allowed to sew, you're not allowed to carry something, etc. It's tangible. It's about tangible reality. That's why he says in the Raya Mehemna and Zohar that Alter Rebbe and Simcha Vov and I guess the Kaddish that Nigla is Eitz Hadas. How could you call it Eitz Hadas Tevera? But Nigla is Ra. But it talks about Tevera. It talks about a world like ours, so we can relate to it. Yes, it has brilliant wisdom to understand what God wants us to do with this world. But what does it talk about? It talks about Tainus Shel Emes v'Sheker, Reuven and Shimon. They have an argument. It's about daily life. And it tells us what God wants us to do with our daily lives and how to be moral and ethical and all the laws. Chassidus is a complete different world. You're not talking about anything that you know. That would be like one of my first introductions. You're talking about reality that you don't know. Atzilus is you have no sample for Atzilus in this world. You have no example of Bria, Eris and Kalim, Tzimtzum. There's not one thing here that you can say I can relate to. So the whole thing is a chiddush. But we learn it like we learn Lamates Malachas. We learn it like, okay, there's 10 spheres, great, now I know there's 10 spheres. And at some point that becomes your routine, and then this becomes your perspective and all that. And you suddenly, I know people who know Chassidus very well. They'll tell you exactly everything. They can answer stiris. They say in this Maimon it says this Maimon says, like you say, Atik it says Kalim, no Kalim. Let's say, but in the third Maimon it says Atik has Kalim, and this one no Kalim. And then you ask them, what are Kalim? They may not know how to answer it. But they have it all mathematically figured out. They know where the Kav is and the Tzimtzum and the different opinions. Because Chassidus requires a different type of mindset. You're not learning here technical facts. The technical facts are almost meaningless. They're meaningful because they're there. The meaningfulness is meaning is what is a lakus, and how does that lakus manifest? That's a whole different language. What is godliness, and what's an eir, and what is a keli, and what is its role, and then finding examples. That's why you find all the examples. This is abstract thinking. It's not about the tangible. As soon as someone asks you, where is love? Where are ideas? Tell me, does that not like throw you a little? It's far easier to say where the ketchup is and where the milk is, right? And where the milk is sink and flesh is sinka. But if someone asks you, where is love and where are ideas? You start thinking, okay, it's a good question. Where are they? They're not in your heart only. I mean, your love, it's everywhere. It forces you to think outside of the box of time and space. And that, what most people are uncomfortable doing, because it's not tangible. You start saying, okay, I'm not a philosopher. But it's not about philosophy, it's about reality. The real you is shaped by things that are impossible to see, or hear, or taste, or touch. Now some people will say, I'm not interested in that, I'm interested in the tangible world. Give me a $1, something I can touch. If someone's in that place, I don't think they can really learn Chassidus. They won't get it. There's no way. Chassidus doesn't talk about anything that's tangible. There's not one thing that's tangible. I mean, tangible take a piece of steak and eat it. Now, there's plenty of pleasure here. You learn Chassidus is pleasure, but the pleasure is not in a tangible thing. It's about understanding what makes things tick. Animals are not charged to learn Chassidus because they won't get it, and they're not interested in a world that's outside of their own. So the first klal in Chassidus is, yes, you have to be interested in something beyond yourself and your self-interest. 100%. No way you can get this without that. Question is how high you can climb. Anyway, I think it's perfectly fine to keep going back to this. I mean, it's not repeating, this is the key. At the end of the day, this is the key to the whole learning process. Agreed? It's the whole thing. And when you see it this way, the Chassidus can do wonders. You start seeing things very differently.
Well, you said a very interesting thing. You said you're shaped by things that are outside of your existence. I thought a person is mostly shaped by his environment, his surroundings, what he grew up with. These are all things that are. But
they're also outside. So they're not the you. It's not your neshama. It's the forces. Look, these are outside forces at the end of the day. Because the best proof is they can cultivate something that's completely not aligned with you. If parents decide that they want their child to be a musician or a doctor, and the child is b'chol not shaykh to that, that's an example. I mean, that's a horrible example. Good healthy chinuch, good healthy parenting is really about one thing. It's nurturing the seed. Your parents plant a seed in the ground is not the parents. This is a new seed that's growing. A good gardener, what does a good gardener do? He doesn't take the seed and start manipulating it or start doing things to it. He pours water, he waters it, he nurtures it, he gets rid of weeds, and he lets it grow. This is the typical example. Bas Legani,
allows the sunlight to come through.
Everything, exactly. He does everything to create an environment that's nurturing. The seed will then do what it has to do. God gave it everything it needs. Now think of the opposite, a bad gardener, or someone who neglects. So the seed starts growing, there's weeds, and this starts eating at it, and this attacks it, and this, there's no water, it's dry, it's hungry, it's thirsty. It's exactly the point. So that's what I meant outside. Now outside forces could help cultivate that and bring it out, or could help undermine it and lock it up. Now God made it that way. He could have made it in a way that you could just be a seed in the ground and just on your own. But He made it. He gave parents that power to nurture or not nurture. Because He wanted Ashutif L'Kodesh Baruch Hu, it's part of our shlichus. Because He didn't want to make it that's automatic. He wanted us to contribute. And parents can destroy a child and parents can bring up a beautiful child. Is anyone destroyed? Look, I've seen situations where children had the worst garden and no one watered and nothing. And still the neshama is still intact. Let's not forget that. The neshama soul is always intact. But it's far harder to become, after 20 years, a tree grew up and it's all twisted and turned and full of weeds. It's far harder to start then. It's far easier to begin. That's why chanech l'nara pidarke. You want to start early. But it's never hopeless. There's no such thing as damaged goods. Even the worst parents cannot destroy a human being. They can destroy a lot and make a lot of difficulties. But there's no such thing as impossible. Because at the end of the day, number one is the soul itself always remains intact. Number two, as I said, I think yesterday, you can always go back to the engineering room. Remember, who can just help you change a few wires. But that, obviously, you don't do unless last resort to do that. But that's real tshuva, actually. So let's continue.
It's in our self-interest to lose our self-interest.
You bet. But to teach people that is not so easy. Because you see, not only do they have self-interest, they also have determined what they think is their real self-interest. That's the bigger problem. Self-interest itself can be a healthy force. It's like a healthy ego, a healthy self-confidence. The problem is when you determine what you think is going to feed your self-interest. That's why the Elim Yasek Adon, that's why we say start doing Torah Mitzvah Shalei Lishma. Because do it for yourself, meaning, but do it the right thing, and slowly you'll come to learn to do it for the right reasons, for better reasons. Okay, so continuing to chapter 122. So we've determined that Behirus now is Be'ikir B'chinas Er Shel Amayla Matzilus. And it's true. Who asked the question the other day? The truth is, you could stop at one line in Ayin Beis and just cover it, and just spend the rest of your life just figuring out how to get to that level. The Rebbe Rashab is taking us all the way now higher than Atzilus. So you could say, what do you mean? I haven't even gotten to Asiyah Ruchnis. Why are you taking me higher than Atzilus? So, the answer is twofold. Number one, it's important to know where the destination is. When you buy a car, even if you're never going to press the gas all the way, they tell you it's going to reach up to 170 miles an hour in 30 seconds. No one's ever going to do that. But you want to know what you're capable of. It feels good. But more than feeling good, it's a standard. It means there's a standard here. So, as the Alter Rebbe once said, that Chassidus teaches how small you are and how great you can become. So some people know how great they can become, but they don't know how small they are. So they can delude themselves thinking, I'm already there or close. Then there are people who know how small they are, but they don't know how great they can become. So they're constantly knocking themselves. You need both. When you teach even a beginner student art or music, you show them the most beautiful piece of art ever created. You play for them the most beautiful music ever played. They may never reach there, but they have a backdrop. They have a standard. It's called juxtapose, like having a perfect circle in the backdrop. So when you create your circle, you can see at least. Like what's meret? If you don't have a standard, then you can create your own diluted standard and think you're 90% there. So that's Kedem Kol, to know the picture. Number two, which I think is even more important, every one of these levels is accessible right now to each one of us. There's no way not. Torah is Melosh Nehira. The Rebbe says you learn something, it has to have a shaykhus. I'm a nasiya. What are you telling me about Lamayla Matzilus? The answer is B'dakus, Me'ain. You can find these levels within yourself. No question about it. Because it's all within you anyway. So it's a question relative to you. Yes, your Lamayla Matzilus may be someone else's Asiyah Chumri, but it doesn't matter. At least it's compared to you, it's that type of level. Because it's about personalizing it. Ultimately, this really comes down to, I would say, I would interpret this on our level. More or less, right now, it's probably about how much we think we really know, and how much we don't know. Acknowledging that. Like the Ma'alam Atzilus is more of understanding that we're not on that level. Atzilus is more what we do relate to. Another aspect of it is when anytime you give up something of your comfort zone, you're getting a gili of the Ma'alam Atzilus. So you see, you could translate this into your world. Because ultimately, if you want true revelation, to true clarity, you have to give something away. You have to give up your perspective on it. I'm just trying to show that all these levels can be translated to us on a daily basis. This is already not necessarily beyond the scope. I'd be happy to do it. And maybe I do it from time to time. And some of my summaries are about that. How do you apply it? It's ultimately trying to understand how this model works where you are. So right now it's about what we've been discussing is how much we know, how clear something is, how transparent something is. There's a lot of examples that you can use for this. I'll give you another example. Communication. So, most of us don't really have someone to talk to from the heart as a, complete trust. Some people can't even speak to their spouses that way. Because everyone has there's things in our heart that we don't reveal. We're ashamed, or we're just not used to communicating. Some people just don't know how to communicate. So they just carry things, coming from Russian parents, what they call emotional constipation, whatever. But basically, it was almost like the older generation thought it was some type of mitzvah to keep everything to yourself, to the extremes. Like even to the point like, where are you going out tonight? We don't say. It's not no one's business. Like what difference does it make? And especially painful things. My grandmother, I remember, my mother, I saw it all the time. They never talked about it. It was almost like, you don't talk about your pain. You don't talk about what hurts you. Because it's not going to help, or you have to be strong and just fight on, whatever the reasons are. And there's always, obviously there's also the other extreme. There's emotional diarrhea. People who just don't stop talking. Pardon the expression. Yeah. There you go. The Russian, the Cold War is still on. Yeah. You have okay, exactly. They don't know when to stop speaking.
But about the Russians, you're so right. It's like,
yeah.
No,
the Russians. I have it.
Yeah. First of all, it's also cultural. After years and years, I see the same thing in South Africa, by the way, in a different way. Because of apartheid, they don't challenge authority. They respect rabbis, not like in America. That's why I was shocked when I went to South Africa the first time and I got respect. I was surprised that they respect rabbis. I said, yeah, they live v'shit, but there's also that element. They have authority. For example, Australians, it's the opposite. Australians,
They're cowboys.
because Australians, but it's called what they call the fatal shore. Australia was built, the white community were prisoners. They were criminals. So they're also their accent. Australian accent is very defiant, and the South African accent is very yes, exactly. Anyway, but so the Russians, I think it's part of the culture, but it's also, I guess it's so here we have the other extreme. We have the people who don't stop talking, and once they break the silence, you know the joke. The guy comes to the galach, the Jew comes to the priest and says to the priest, just confessing his sins. So the priest says to him, I'm very impressed that you finally realized we're to come to confess, The Jew says, don't take it personally, I'm telling everybody. Right. Right, exactly.
South Africans, I know, I'm
right.
I mean, I have a South African wife.
Right.
Oh boy.
Okay, but your wife is unique.
Oh. I respect you. He's the priest.
Yeah.
He's not at all.
Looks for every rule there's exceptions.
No, I'm talking about the
She's a defiant South African.
Defiant, fighting the government.
Remember, not everything cultural affects people. There are also other factors. For example, people who've suffered, who've gone through darkness, it usually brings out a other dimension that's not so culturally impacted because they had to survive. Look, I just read a very horrifying line. It just struck me. Someone said this. They say, damaged people are very dangerous because they know they could survive.
Wow.
Isn't that? That means there's yeah. Anyway, the point I'm making here is, they ever got to the bottom of it? It was mental illness, what? Who knows? She's dead now.
Not bad in the schools.
It's not the only reason. Then you'd have a lot more. Based on the lack of God, you should have shootings every day. Not from a few other factors. I didn't say it's not a factor, but it's not the only factor.
Maybe start thinking about your grandmother.
No. So why was I saying? No, I'm saying it b'yachas to what we're talking about. And I can tell you personally, not so much personally for me, thank God, but what I've witnessed and spoken to people. For some people, breaking the silence of pain and so on is the healthiest thing possible. Because it's think of it like a kettle that's boiling water, and boils and there's no spout. There's no release. What happens? So it explodes. But when the psyche, it implodes. It's exploding all the time inside of you. So, like they say, a very harsh expression, but they say the silence was worse than the rape. Because when there's a crime perpetrated, there's a crime and I'm angry. And if you're not allowed to be angry, and they tell you nothing happened, or no, it was your fault, or there's a cover-up, you imagined it, then the crime is far worse. Because they're telling you, it's like someone getting cut, and saying, no, you're not cut, you're not hurting, it's babama, it's not true. then what happens is you don't even have the confidence in your tools to cry and to say something was wrong. And then you get a little older, and as you go into an adult, and you start realizing, 1 second, am I right? Am I wrong? You can't even trust your instincts because you were always told you were wrong when you weren't wrong. You were right.
Everything you did was okay. You couldn't help it. It was your mother, your father.
So bottom line is, what happens is the silence. That's why I'd rather someone err on the error of more emotional expression than less. Even though I also think it can become very selfish, because once people break their silence, and this I also see, they say, listen, 20 years no one took care of me, and now I'm going to take care of myself. And they become extremely self-absorbed. So I understand there's a need for that. Listen, it has to balance out, and they have to build up. Everything is balanced. Just like the other extreme is not good, that's also not good. But you can't criticize it because you know where it's coming from. Someone didn't drink water for 20 years, and they're suddenly drinking. Yeah, you tell them you're going to die from too much drinking, but they have to do something to compensate. My point that I'm trying to make here is that I was applying actually this to, so he talks here levels of revelation. So Kalim conceal a bit, and they reveal. Then you get all the way to Eid HaBlikvul, and that's complete revelation. Now, if we just saw that, we would not be able to exist. Okay, that may be even higher, the Etzem. But bottom line is, you can't get to Eid HaBlikvul. Nevertheless, he's telling us about this. Why? Because in life, every one of us has to have a time where your Etzem is just being revealed. Doesn't have to be every day necessarily. So most of our lives live in the world of Kalim and Eretz Natzilis. There's a Kali and an Eir. There's a balance. But at times, like when I see the Rebbe on Purim, Simchas Torah, in Kippur, you saw there was a Gili Mina Etzem, you saw there was a higher Gili, and so on. So I think a good way to apply this to each of us is like I said, communication. How many of us really can speak Gili HaEtzem? How much is your Eid HaBlikvul really radiating? Very, very little. Who do you have to speak to really on that level? Most of us are functioning on not Eretz Kalim Atzilus altogether. I think it's basically Kalim of Asiyah Chumris, like I said, with a little Eid here and there. But the point is that you could make this into a model of where do you stand, and at times you have to have a type of more of a revelation from a deeper place that has no Kalim and no Asius even, no words.
The only thing we have is, I think the only thing we have is davening. We don't have anything like practical. I would love to have an hour a day with.
I'll give you.
Even get a siyarukni.
Davening. I don't know. I've not met many people, if at all, that know how to daven. Lip service. I know people who have PhDs in that. They know how to do it fast. Like one guy told me, I was able to knock off a shachris in 9 minutes without missing a word. He thought that was an accomplishment. I saw it like a tragedy. But he can do it. Or like what's the record for reading the Megillah? Huh?
14 minutes maybe.
How much?
Not the record, let's say.
How much?
14 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, it's like a little less than making a matzah. Let's put it in context. So my point I'm making here is like, we live in a fast food age. So that's b'chal not davening. If you want to start with davening, and trust me, it's a lost art in my opinion. Davening is not just opening up a siddur and putting on tefillin and talis. Davening is Veda Shebelev. That's the way the Gemara categorizes. Veda Shebelev. So let's start talking about what means emotional work. Not so simple. You got to really know how to do that. You got to be trained to do that. My point that I'm making here is that davening in the Medrash says there's 10 names for tefillah. What does davening even mean? And a few of them are all connected to song, shira, zimra, and so on. So I think a song is a very good example of what I'm talking about. Why do we need to sing? Why do we need to hear a song from time to time? Because there's an expression of that's higher than Kalim. It's higher than Asis. The Rabbi even spoke about a niggun with Asis and niggun without Asis. So you could say, I'm trying to apply these ideas to where we are. I'm not just trying to have a talk about general. I'm speaking about Ayin Beis right now. I'm not just going off a tangent. Like a song with words, you can say are like Kalim of Keser. A song without words is maybe the Eir of Keser without the Kalim. I'm just using an example. Why? Because song touches a place that's far more revealing and much more raw and naked in a way than words do. When you sing a song or when you hear a song, it's a far deeper expression. Why do we need it? Because that's one of the ways we elevate ourselves to a greater place. I'm just giving some examples. So I think why Chassidim would sing, you hear their songs, that some people know the tunes the Rebbe Rashab would use when he davened, different tefillahs, even daily tefillahs. They always use song in tefillah because that was the tool to get to an emotional place. It wasn't just that was because it was the actual tool, like Zmiris and Shabbos. Again, I'm not talking about mechanical lip service Zmiris, Like one guy told me that we always sing the same Friday night song. That's why I finally decided to leave Shabbos altogether. He couldn't stand that song itself became mechanical. So maybe change your repertoire from time to time, different nigunim. You know what I mean? Like on the table, every Shabbos they bring the fish. Okay, now we sing. Spontaneous dancing, it's called, at 9:00. Yeah. So point being that I'm trying to point out the examples of that we could all use from time to time. Ashtikul er from L'mayla Mekalim. That's the bottom line, and that's far purer. But you can't live that way. You can't live all day. You have to bring it back down into the world of Kalim. So you want to sing as Nigan?
You did that with the...
He wants mashke. That's what he wants. I see he's always holding the cup there, waiting to be poured.
The Russian.
We tend to do that with the...
Maybe it's connected, by the way. The mashke, with the nishreden, could be haba hatalia.
They relax a little. Yes.
You said you sang a song with the monks, no?
The solution to constipation is zalachai.
Fruit juice.
That's the American solution.
That's why they call it very cocky.
What time is it already? Are we going to learn that? Okay. But did everyone relate to this example I gave? So I think you could look at your life and you could find places where you're more in Kalim and out of Kalim. The Farei's game from the Kalim Amal. That's the bottom line. That's the Farei's game from the Kalim. That's what the point is. Oh, that's a good way. Farei's from the Kalim. But you have to come back too. I don't know.
Maps and
He wants a yoga class.
no, you know something?
No, what's up, son?
I come from the other side. And the other side...
I'm not arguing with you. No one's arguing with
We
you.
meditated with this and that and that. No.
Yeah, but one second. You ever sing?
I'm a lady. I can't carry a tune. I don't appreciate music except on Yom Kippur.
I didn't say sing to others, to yourself. Do you ever listen? Do you ever listen to singing? Just music?
Not too often.
Well, so I'm telling you that you better start doing that.
Not too much. I'm stuck in my
So that's here. So you have an easy solution for you.
Is it lobotomy?
No. You gotta unwind yourself, my friend. You've been so tightened by this halachic Judaism. You gotta unwind a little, and maybe just lock yourself in a room, put on loud music, and just dance with free abandon.
I came from the 60s. He's trying to bring me back.
But what I said that was nothing else in halacha. No, seriously, you described the problem. I gave you the solution. That's what you need, my friend. There's not going to be. You want a trick that's going to work with your left brain, also a comfort zone of your left brain. Maybe that's maybe not what you need. Like the question is whether you could listen to advice like that and maybe go out of yourself.
Maybe I have mamas have no attraction to music. I'm telling you.
That's not a good sign.
I know. I'm not saying.
You have a carpenter.
My kids all sing blues.
Okay, I'm not talking about whether you can sing. That's a technical thing. I told you whether you listen. What's that? Your ears also can't hear music.
I want the music I give them I like it.
So I think they're doing by grab. Okay, Moshe is going to take him to some concert.
I like two. I like number 6.
8th day. I was going to suggest Led Zeppelin.
I like the Beatles. I like.
Bring you back to his environment.
I'm not trying to bring you back to the 60s, but I'm trying to say that whatever soul you locked up after you left the 60s maybe needs to be released again.
That's really true. You know you really sing.
No, I understand why you lock it up, because it could also be like a wild animal. No, you simply need to harness your animal. You can't keep it in a cage the rest of your life. What did Ephraim Pekarsky say when he came to Holter? He asked him, what did you accomplish? He says, I turned the jungle into a zoo. I don't know if he actually did that, but that's That's
I love Chassidus and
no. So no. Yeah. Anyway, we could focus on this more for time. But yeah. No, but your frustration is, I think, far easier to resolve than many of our others because it's quite tangible. No, what you just said, you just described it. You lacked off a whole part. The music is not touching you. But who cares whether you can sing or not? Because you can't sing, that's why you can't hear. Your ears also.
I like the Chabad in Gunung. That's the only thing I ever liked.
If you like Chassidus, you have to like Nagina. There's no way. It's like the Rabbi said. Nagina and Chassidus go hand in hand. So you just need a chaver to sit down with you and just have a little Chassidish fun. That's what you need. Too tight. Did you get a massage lately? Huh? Maybe you need a chiropractor. Whatever they do. I mean, loosen up. You're probably very tight here, right?
No.
How do you know?
I know, I can see.
Ain't etzem master. You can't feel. It's like a... Yeah. Okay.
I'm not. Only now I get a little thing. I'm telling you, it's a little bit from doctor. Just a little bit.
Okay. You have not seen my wild side. I'll take you for a trip one of these days. We'll have a little fun. Nothing prohibited. Don't get scared. It'll be a spiritual journey.
He said he's missing the LSD.
Well, there's plenty of other powers that are more powerful than that. That's right. Just tell you. If you can't, the song can be just as powerful if you know how to use it. Not that I ever did LSD. I've never had interest, but I could pretty much compete with a lot of people who did LSD with my own resources, inner. Okay. Maybe you did get spoiled by ingesting something, so you don't think you can generate it on your own. That's possible. There's no question. You're not the only one. Many people who've had a lot of that energy cut it off because they thought it's wild and inappropriate and it doesn't fit into the... That's why I think without Chassidus, you'd be right. You would no way. But Chassidus is not. Chassidus is the alternative to that. But you have to then apply it. I understand exactly where you're coming from.
Yeah, even some religious Jews, for example, in Israel, they said the council, like a wrong freed, is a wrong thing to go.
So they said, so what?
No,
I'd love to see their lives.
They don't see Yiddishkeit.
The more news that's breaking lately from the religious world, you come to realize all these words that said, you have to see what's going on in their lives before they talk so much. There's probably far worse going on. I'm not saying I'm not going to go to a Vromfried concert. That's not the issue by me. I don't think that the people that are coming out with prohibitions, but that are klal, the Rebbe gesagt, when someone, he asked the Frierdiker Rebbe, he once gave tzedakah by night. So someone came over to him and told him, by night, you don't give tzedakah by Laila. It's not man's tzedakah. Tzedakah is not by night. So he said to the Frierdiker Rebbe said, Mistama gitere batogech nicht. That the person who told him probably by day also doesn't give. So all these, where it's coming from,
We also answered that he's separated.
but see the Yiras Shamayim. There's far worse going on. But look, the frum world lives in a cocoon of chitzenius. Let's be honest. Chitzenius is all that matters there. I'm not saying there are definitely some that live in a more internal, but the general religious world is an external culture today. That's very strong, and that's how they want to keep it. And when things are piercing it by exposing stuff, that's the worst thing possible. Why are they going crazy about that? Because it's by them the whole Yiddishkeit is the outer. The inner was like, they don't. The Yetzer is doing who knows what behind the scenes. Doesn't matter as long as you dress a certain way and everything looks good. It's this classic curse, the worst possible disease. We're complete chitzenius. What the Rebbe talks about rants and raves in the Haftarah for Shabbos Chazan. I don't need your tefillas, I don't need your karbonis, I don't need all this stuff. Zevach Mesim, all that, there's strong issues there. Strong words there. The Rebbe doesn't say, I want your mitzvahs and shloi l'shma. There he says, I don't need it if you're going to kill people. It's a klal Haftarah.
That's why they couldn't believe.
Now, we don't say the Haftarah every day, but the facts are there, and unfortunately, You ever read the Maimon in Sefer Modern Midrash on the Haftarah Zevach Mason, what it means, the story? But the guy that read it. I translated actually in English recently. Very powerful. So you got to read it on your own. It's hard to say it. About, yeah. So what are we doing?
We're starting.
We are? Okay. Well, it's Dvarim, Shabbos Chazayin Maimon, Sefer B'Morim Midrash. It's a story. The whole thing is amazing. Basically, the whole Maimon is a story from the Baal Shem Tov.
What year is it?
Tavshin Aleph, Tavshin Beis. When the Maimorim came out, it's in printed Sefer B'Morim Midrash. I'll show it to you afterwards. Huh?
Where is it? In English.
It's online. You send me an email, I'll send you it. Okay, so let's read whatever. How far is it? What time? Huh? So chapter 122. We're just stating now that the greatest revelation, the greatest behirus, clarity and revealed and transparency is in Eir HaBligvul. That's higher than Atzilus, higher than the structure. So he's asking a question, Agam, and though l'cheiris seemingly mashayich, how is it possible in Eir Sef Shemagala Dover? How is it possible that it's revealing something? Hakolu b'chinas atzmus Eir Sef. It's all a core, essential level. Revelation, by definition, is already going out of something, going out of the core. So how does Shaykh say it? I'll translate in the words I just said. We can talk about things that are on a surface level. I need food, I need drink. You can talk a little more about your emotional needs, intellectual needs. You can even talk about deeper things. But I said before, there's a time everybody needs to have a place to express your whole real you. Isn't that like a contradiction of terms? If it's the real you, it's beyond expression. I don't know if that's the excuse of the Russians, but they couldn't even express other things. But you could make the argument, expression itself, by definition, is already something. I need something, or I relate to something. It's words. It's true. A niggin can touch a place, but a niggin is not really expression. A niggin is just singing. But the answer is obviously going to be that there is a way to express. So the question here is, the whole definition of the Eir before Atzilus is that it's just a core reality. The whole revelation is when it starts coming down. In other words, the teacher who's communicating to the students is already putting something is there. There's some kalim. If there's no kalim, that maybe it's because it's a place that's beyond expression. So why are we suddenly using the word gili on an etzem, so to speak? Obviously, it's clear, built in, that he's going to show that there's gili of the etzem, and it's not etzem mamish. But based on the first line here, so you could say, you express through kalim. Fine. A very great student is going to receive it with very sublime kalim, like the kalim of Atzilus. What did we say before? Kalim of Atzilus are letters that are engraved. The letters, however, they are letters. It's Anochi Hashem Elokech. However, they're so transparent that they give you the whole core idea, and they even give you a sense of the core source of this idea. Right? That's what we learned. Right? Both, you get two things. You get, like you said, you get the idea Kamoishahu, and you also the etzem ha'er as it is in the idea, and also the etzem of the air that's even outside of the idea. But when you're talking about a level that's outside of kalim altogether, there's not even letters on the stone. So what's the shaykh gili? It's like saying, I'm giving you a flat stone, tablets. There's no letters on it, but it's a gili. What gili is it? In other words, seemingly gili is in the domain of kalim, as subtle as they are, but it's some type of kalim. Now remember, you could immediately answer, didn't we learn that when God wants to Eir Kesalma, God wraps himself in Eir like a shirt. So we see that Eir is already Lefi Erech HaKeli compared to the Etzem. So obviously this is the beginning of the answer. But you have to ask the question. I want to make the question very important, it's a critical question here. Because this is the challenge. This is now, where does Okay, you led me all the way to Bligvul, Eir Bligvul. But where does Eir Bligvul meet with Gvul? If you're talking Kalim, that's Gili. If you're talking Etzem, there's no Gili. What are you telling me? There's a Gili in a place that's beyond Gili, so to speak. That's really the core question here. Everybody gets that? It's this is a critical place. Because we're going to come to understand the real nature of Eir. That Eir is not Kalim, but it's also not Etzem. Remember, just like we learned the difference between Ayin and Yesh, there's a place between Ayin and Yesh, there's also a place between Etzem and Metzias. And it's going to be Gilia Etzem, that's the place in between. So it's built in Metzias Nimtza, manifesting in Metzias Nimtza.
Where do we say that Aaron Sof is Megal Dover? Because that's what the is?
Because the last chapter he explained that as soon as air is concealed somewhat in Atzilus, it already is not true Behirus. It's not true illumination. So the question is based on read the last line of the previous chapter. That's what he was saying. In other words, the main Behirus is, so think of it like a bright stone. A very brilliant stone. It's shining. Then you engrave letters in it. So he said the letters, yes, they're of the stone, but they still somewhat put a shadow on. Now he's saying the stone itself, that's real Behirus. He's saying now, Mashayach, we're not talking about a stone, we're talking about Eir Ein Sof. He's going to, it's like he says, L'cheir, Agam L'cheir. I just wanted to emphasize what he's going to do here now. The answer is that there's garments also higher than Atzilus. So in other words, it's even though we just said it's higher than Kalim, that there is something there, some garments that are even higher than Atzilus. Like it says, Hoid v'hodar lavashta, that you have clothed yourself, lavashta, you've put on, you've dressed yourself with Hoid and Hodar. The literal translation of Hoid and Hodar, Hoid v'hodar, is beauty, splendor maybe, yeah. Hoid v'hodar. And then we say, Eitaer, you've wrapped yourself. God wrapped himself with light like a shirt, which we learned before in chapter Kuf Yutes. Yeah. Very good. The Eitaer hu b'chinas eir ha'atzilus kanal, Pere kanal. What Pere kanal? Where do you say Pere kanal? Pere kanal was not so hanal. Yeah, I know, but he said Pere kanal.
He didn't say the previous kanal though, and he's still there, the one that we're talking about there.
Did we talk about Pere Kufyutes? It must have been in the last. Yeah, right here. Right here. By Vahei Vayelikim. V'gamdishin is by Vahei Vayelikim. Yeah, a few lines in the previous chapter. That's what I meant. Okay. So Eir Te'er is how God wraps himself in Eir. That's Eir of Atzilus. So that's a Levush Atzilus already. That's already Eir lower. So if that's the case, when it says before Heid V'Hod Lavash, you have to say it's a higher level. That means it's in a level that's higher than Atzilus. So what's the difference between Heid V'Hod Lavash and Eir Te'er Kasalma? It's not redundant. So one is Atzilus and one is before, higher than Atzilus. So now he's going to explain what that means. Because it's known that also Kesed has an inner and an outer. Because energy, even if without Kalim, even though you can't say that there's levels of energy, yet nevertheless you could say there's inner and outer dimensions. That's the core energy and its extension. Like it says elsewhere. Let me explain what this means. Isn't that the same thing as saying Ischalkus? Why is he saying it has no Ischalkus, but it has Primis Chetzenis? That's also Ischalkus. My understanding, and I have to really look into it more, but I'm almost sure this is what he means. You could say two things as Ischalkus two ways. You could say the Alter Rebbe in the Maimer Zecher Av Tuvcha, which we learned a while back when we talked about numbers. So he says an interesting thing. He talks about Eir. He says, why do you use the mashal of Eir and not Shefa? One of the reasons is because Shefa implies Etzem and Hishpashtus. What does that mean? The sun is here, everyone knows it's in the sky, and then it radiates light outside of itself. So in physical space, the idea of something being in one place and giving off to another makes sense. But how does it work, for example, with the neshama? The neshama gives life to us. That's all in the same space. It's not the neshama is here and your body is here. Like the sun is radiating from hundreds of thousands of miles away, sending us heat and light and so on. And neshama doesn't send it from somewhere. Neshama is within you. So the difference would be, that would be like hispashtus. So something is one place and it extends. It's like shining a flashlight, or that's like more like shefa, relatively speaking. And neshama is more gilia helam. When neshama is, let's say, asleep, when you're asleep, the soul is not giving you so much energy. When you're awake, you have more energy. Okay, even when you're asleep, it's kistidich, you always have energy. But death, or before birth, or death is a good example. The neshama was there, now it's not there. Not the neshama, it's not like the sun went set, or the sun left. The soul simply left in the sense where it's no longer revealing its energy. The truth is, we do say the neshama leaves, whatever that means. But the point I'm trying is that it's more, so when you say Eir, you're not trying to say is like Ischalkus Dargis would be, okay, there's a bunch of steps, I'm giving you a cup of water, you pour him a little, he pours you, less. Here he's saying Eir doesn't work that way. Eir works more with Primis and Chensenis. It's either more inner or an outer. That's what means Etzem and Spashtus. Not in physical space and not in spiritual space. It's basically the same energy. Just the question is, do you have more of it or do you have less of it? Is it the inner energy or the outer energy? Whereas in Kalim you can speak far more in real levels and say, Chachma is higher, Chesed is next, etc., etc. Because remember we said about Chachma, Chesed and Gvura. Gvura is not just diminished Chesed. They're fundamentally two different levels. In there he's saying there's no fundamentally two levels. All it is a matter of Primius or Chitzenius of the Eir.
So the Spashtus is the fact that there's light in the whole entire world when the sun's shining, wherever it's shining?
Yeah, not here. Etzem Spashtus means all in the same area. Here it doesn't mean physically. He's just saying V'chein b'b'chinas ha'keser. The same thing is with keser. Yes, b'chinas Primius Chitzenius. There's an inner and an outer. V'chein b'chinas atik v'arich. Oh, now he's saying it specifically. And that's the levels of atik and arich. V'zeh inyan b'chinas heid v'hadar. And that's the level of heid v'hadar.
No. It's okay. I just wanted to...
I don't know if heid means atik and heid is hadar is arich. Maybe. Yeah, it looks like it. Ki heid pirushei ziv. The meaning of heid is reflection.
That's what's on the side.
We're in the middle of reading. We're reading it. K'moi v'nachas v'nasata ma'heitcha alav. Am I reading? That I think this is on Moshe Rabbeinu, right? V'nasatcha ma'heitcha alav. Moshe Yeshua, yeah. V'nasata.
You should give him a heitcha.
And you will give him. You will give him ma'heitcha from your what's heid, from your glory or from your splendor, which means from your reflection, your height, from your. It's a form of emanation. Ukamoi kase kisa shamayim heidu hoidoi, right? Hoidoi, not hoidu. That was kisa shamayim. That means covering.
Majestic.
Yeah, majestic is a good word. Yeah, from your majesty. Good. Ziv usually is reflection. Ziv is like.
He covered the heavens with hoida with his.
Right, he covered the heavens with his majesty or glory or splendor. So what do we have from this? All this shows us that Hoid is a Ziv. Okay.
Does that mean like an aura?
Like a reflection, yeah. But he's going to say, Amnam inyan Hoid hu b'chinas Ziv er atzmi. However, Hoid is the core. Like for example, you could have an outer reflection when he's giving Nasata, Maheitcha, a love. He wasn't just giving Yeshua a nice blessing. He was giving him the powers of his authority, of being a Rebbe, of being a leader. So it's clearly, you're talking here a majesty that's not just an external thing. It's the whole essence of Moshe Rabbeinu was going over it, but not the essence, the core. So it's essential. It's called a ziv ve'er atzmi. Right. It's an er atzmi. It's an energy. It's a light, but it's a core of a core level. V'zeu hefesh ben heid l'hodar, and that's the difference between heid and hodar. The heid hu etzem ha'er. Heid is the core energy. V'hodar who's galas ha'heid. Hodar is already the revelation of it. Like he said, simply, ha'heid who's galas ha'heid. U'kamoi hadar kved heidecha. Huh? Yeah, hadar kved heidecha, which means hadar kved heidecha. How beautiful, or how beautiful is the glory of your beauty. So you see here, right here, there's like two levels. There's hadar of kved heidecha.
Maybe he said it before, like you mentioned.
So why didn't it say hadar kved heidecha? That's what it should have said. Oh, so hadar heidecha is heid. In other words, the hadar of your heid.
The honor of your majesty.
Yeah, the honor of your majesty, or the reflection. So you see clearly here, there's hadar. No, I thought hadar. I'm sorry, my mistake. I thought it said kved hadrecha. I thought no. You're right. Kved heidecha. U'kamoi b'Moshe isa b'rayim mehemna. Kamoi by Moshe it says in Rayim mehemna. Zoya, that is Pinchas Daf Reish Chav Gimel. V'nesata aheid l'Moshe. There in Zoya it says that Nesata he gave Hayd to Moshe. Hayd is the higher level. V'nosan aheid l'Moshe. Ubi Yeshua b'chinas hadar. Yeah. But then he says v'nosata meheitcha alav. From heitcha. From his Hayd, he gave him hadar. Okay.
It was at a lower level.
Ubi Yeshua b'chinas hadar or hadar? How would you say it? Hadar. Hayd v'hadar. Okay, Hayd v'hadar. Ukadisha b'Yalkut, like it says in Yalkut Medrash Pasha Bracha. Nitna Hayd l'Moshe v'hadar l'Moshe l'Yeshua. There you go, straight. He gave Hayd to Moshe, which is the core, and hadar to Yeshua. It's mamish b'fer. Shenemer b'cher sheira he hadar lei.
It's talking about Yosef.
Yeah. Yeshua is from the Shevet Yosef. So b'cher sheira, which means the eldest of the or the prime. B'cher is also the most powerful of Sheirei, hadar lei. Uksiv v'nasata maheitcha alav maheitcha v'lei kol heitcha. And then when it says that he gave it to the Yeshua, it says he gave from his heitcha. Now, but not all of it. He didn't give. It doesn't say v'nasata heitcha alav. It says meheitcha, meaning he gave of it, not all of it. V'hainu shahed hu etzem v'hodar hu izgalos. Okay, pretty strong case. Shahed hu etzem, Hayd is the core, and hodar is the revelation of it. Like example, for example, by a person like you see, what's Hayd by a person is that the face, the glow on his face, the shine and glow of his face,
it's a charisma,
right? Charm, grace. Viskabel is accepted, but then so when you see that glow on the face, every heart of every person accepts it without even.
Just taken by it.
Taken by it even without any logic. It's not a logical thing. Yeah. Because you're seeing there's the core beauty, the core that doesn't have within any details. It's just a glow, a shine that affects you. That's why it's not possible to have in it any reason or understanding or knowledge. That's why everyone is receptive. It's receptive to everyone because it's not a matter of gradations or levels. When someone is muhudir, meaning he's meticulous, say hidur, he's very careful in how he behaves. Means everything he does is done with a certain care, deliberation, and so on. And all the details, the details. when you say on the esrog that it's a beautiful fruit. We're not just talking about the general glow of the esrog. This is a beautiful explanation. The esrog looks good. It's muhuda b'chol hapratim. There are details. Shaboy acher ben kulam hu hadar. Until you say that between all of them, so there's a very clear distinction between all of them. It's especially unique. V'chein vadarta pnei zaken. You say the face of the elder, vadarta, has a glow to it, or is
also using the word hadar.
Yeah. Shetzrichim lahadre. So there it's vadarta pnei zaken means you should honor the face of an elderly person. Vadarta means you stand up for him. Shetzrichim lahadre lefare b'pratin yonik vede. It means that you have to honor him, lahadre, to beautify him.
Certain details how to honor him.
Lefare, and to praise him. In the details of his cover, right? There's details. It's not just a general thing. Because the hidur comes in specific details, specifically. And heid is in general because it's the core, etzem, the essence. That's what it says by Shleima, that they get vayitna love, and it was given upon him. Heid malchus, the dignity, the majesty of his kingship. Divrei Yomim Aleph, Chavteis Chavhei, or Pirish b'Metzudas David, and the Metzudas David explains Shahayinida be'enei kol. It was obvious to all Asher Hu Hogan v'Roy leMelucha M'Pa'as Atzmei. That it was obvious to all that he is fitting and appropriate for kingship M'Pa'as Atzmei, from his own virtue.
Not because he was a son of
right, as his own merit. So we see here the word what? Hoid, not Hoid. M'Pa'as Atzmei. So he's going to explain what that means. Right? Yeah. But Inyan, who was the Inyan? You do it. What's it mean? Why is the Hayd used here? Because it's known that there's no king without a nation. So that's the case. There's Nasus. His being exalted and above is not possible. Ein Nimshul is not transmitted. Mistayef, and doesn't follow Rak bina'am, only if there's a nation. If there's no nation, ain't melech. So in other words, the nation is from where originates his greatness. Shemisnasen oisei alehem. Sheminasen oisei alehem. So it's only from the nation that he's. If there's no nation to be higher than, king was alone on an island. What kind of king is he? So kingship, by definition, is being exalted of something. Sheminasen oisei alehem. Ve'eisen oisei lemelech. And they designate him as king. Like the mitzvah. Designated king. And how is that symbolized? When they place a crown, a kingly crown on top of his head, and they bow to him, they receive the yoke of his kingship upon them. Without this, he would not have any advantage over any other person outside of himself, beyond him, others. So if that's the case, why, when he becomes a king, is there such a mosik deila me'ela? Yeah, right. There's a fear that just comes on its own. That doesn't need contemplation, that he's king, and that accepted upon him the kingship. In other words, it's not because they're afraid of being punished. It's just a natural respect and awe. It's a question he's asking. If the whole Malchus came because they designated him, so all it is relative. He's on his own. He's not on a higher level. It's only because he was exalted when they crowned him. And here we see that it's automatic, without any particular reason, or not without any effort. I love Mamela Nefel falls upon them awe and a fear on each person. Why? Because of whom that's because
they can kill them.
He says not Yirusa Einish. So he's saying, in other words, there's some element where you see the king. Forget about. Let's say there's no punishment. You see him and you bow to him. Just she says, for whom that's because of his exaltedness. The Yeshua
wasn't the king.
That's specifically because of his core hisnasis, his core exaltation. Shenikri yiras haremus. This is called yiras haremus, not yiras einish. That there's an awe when you see someone that's on a higher level. You just have a sense of respect. Like we physically see, we actually see the difference between the fear of a king and the fear of a minister. The fear of a minister is only because of his ruling. He rules, and he's governs over them. But the fear of a king, it's not because he governs over them, or dominates over them, or governs. It's only because it's because of his core exaltation, and that's why the fear of him comes automatically. In Yiddish, I'm a falirtzach. You lose yourself.
Talking about the Rabbi.
Yeah, because he's beyond you completely. The first one is because he's your authority, so you have a respect for that. Here is a certain beyond. He's completely beyond. That means that this exaltation became something that is core and natural to him. Because as if he's fundamentally beyond the entire nation, and Marumaman is exalted and Manusan above them on a core, removed on a core level. Until anyone that defies him, anyone that made it by him, that mutineers, rebels, is chayav misa, is death. Subject to death penalty, committed just like he rebelled against God. Yeah, that's where you learn it from. That the blessed is novice. What does novice mean?
Always it was by Yaakov, the whole story that he took away his vineyard. So his wife told him, what are you scared of him? She put two false witnesses that he kills the king in his chayav misa. Then Hashem told him.
So what does the word novice mean? What does novice mean?
He owned the vineyard and the king wanted it.
So Baruch Novis Elikim Melech.
So his wife told him.
So basically, so they compare Elikim to Melech. Okay. So God, so defying the king, rebelling against the king is like rebelling against God. The kol ze ef shali is like mepnei hachtar shalam. All this is impossible. You cannot say this is only because they crown the crowning of the nation. That they received him as a king, because they can't give him this type of exalted state. Even though through them accepting him as king and designating him as king, that's why he has. That's why he's nasas lem. He's exalted above them. That's only Hisnasus al-Am, which is called Hishtarus. Yeah. That part that they designate him is only considered because that's considered like his governing over them, his ruling authority over them. But from this element that he spoke over, that's more in the technical side. That's the part that he rules over them and governs over them. Because from this type of elevation would not be a natural, an automatic fear and bittul and subjugation. But isnasis ha'atzmi, the core type of exaltation that that is fundamentally above and beyond, and that automatically this would elicit an automatic fear. This would not come from crowning alone. So what's the explanation? We're in the middle of discussing. Let's finish it, and then you'll hear it. However, the Inyan of this is Dukasha Kiblu Lamelach. So how do you explain this? On one hand, we said the whole thing, the whole kingship came because of a nation. Without it, there is no king. On the other hand, you can't say that alone is the reason for such type of awe. She says, and the Inyan is that Kasha Kiblu Lamelach Nimshach Boy, that when they received him as king, something was transmitted into him. Memidus Malchus de Le'elu B'Keser Malchus Shalei. That when he was accepted as king, he's no longer the same person. Something new was added. There was Emshach, there was a transmission from Malchus of above, kingship of above, into the Keser Malchus and the crown king of him.
Like a Rabbi.
And through this, this new addition that came into him, has this core exaltation that he becomes a melech be'etzem etzadat. He's now a king fundamentally on the core level on his own. Who said this? Who said this? You're coming to your own conclusions.
He said he got
No, I said nothing. We're in the middle of a chapter. We didn't finish the chapter. He didn't say anything clearly. He's in the middle of a question and answer. Ube'etzem, ube'emes, in parentheses he has, in truth, be'etzem yesh boi koyach hamelucha behelam gam kedim shemachtirim es. Okay, from this it appears that two things happen. It's Emel B'leam, they actually crown him, so that's up to them. And that would only lead to a fear of a minister, because he has authority. But something came from above, Malchus from above, now he has a whole different thing. Now he's saying, no, even before they crowned him, he has the power of Melucha Behelam. This king has in him hidden this potential of this type of kingship. Just even before they crowned him, Shahu, the Neshama Klol is be'etzem, because he's a all-encompassing soul. V'yesh by Ayin ha'isnasus be'etzem, and he has within him, on a core level, an exalted state, like it says elsewhere. V'hu, ma'sheyesh by be'helam b'chinas malchus de'leila. What does this mean in the context of what he said? That this malchus de'leila that we just said is revealed with him when they crown him. He has that in him and concealed the higher malchus even before. And when they crown him, it reveals within him this potential, this hidden power within him. That's the parentheses. And anyone who rebels in him or mutineers, this explains now that therefore anyone that challenges him or in that way is how do you compare him to God? Because it's not about him. He has now a dimension of godly malchus. It's like made the malchus de'leila, shenikra Elokim Chaim u'melech Elam. That's called Elokim Chaim, the living God, u'melech Elam, the king of the world.
Why is he adding this?
Because it's basically answering a fundamental question. Does he have it on his own? He doesn't have it on his own. The king, the nation gives it to him. What does he have on his own? The power of malchus de'leila. That's why he has this type of. That's why there's this deeper yira, and that's why would you kill him if someone's made it ben nasar? There's no chayiv misa. So, how could you compare him to God? This answers it, because Malchus De'leila is now inside of him. Same reason why we stand up for a Talmud Chacham, not because he's a good, great guy who's smart, because he has Torah of God within him. According to this, we'll understand also Malchus De'leila in this Nasa Salikis, in the divine dominance, or the divine superiority. That when we say God is a king, when we say, let's say on Rosh Hashanah, we're crowning God as king, it's not that it's transmitted to Nilkach and taken from, rooted in, sourced in, from the nation Nifrid, which are separate, Yesh Ma'ayin. Because we say, Emel B'leam, the same thing. That God needs an outside nation that's like, not children, but like servants, that crown him. They're Nifrid, they're separate and created anew. In other words, Oyir cannot crown, because Oyir is a hemshech of the Moir. A Kalim or Nifradim, things that are separate, they can come and say, we crown you as king. Like we say, the heavenly soldiers, the heavenly celestial bodies bow to him. It's Einarech Klal. How could it be that God's Malchus, which is so fundamentally distant from us, that we should be causing his isnasus? Kim hanikra kiim. So what's the meaning? Kim nikra hamelech hamarim levade. Because he's called. No, I'm sorry. It's still going on. Kim. He's called melech hamarim levade. On his own, he's exalted. We learned this before. Like we said, Aden Elam. What did we say? Aden Elam. Terem kol yitzur nivra. He asked that question. So in other words, on his own he's levade. Because his exaltation, his higher state is core. It's not relative to the nation or to others. So that's levade. When you say that he's misnasa to be a melech on the nation, that's already elam habriya and yitzira shezer shekoser malchuscha malchus keleilamim hu b'chinas levush v'tzimtzum gadol. That's already how he's manifesting. Is already a levush, a garment and a great concealment. Hu k'mashikosav Hashem melech geius lavash. The geius zu etzle b'chinas levush levad. You say Hashem melech geius lavash. The Hashem is geius is like greatness. but it's a garment. The geyazu, it's the b'chinas levush, because here it's a garment. It's not the real. You talk about the highest level of the divine is isnasas atzmi. Here you're already talking as he's manifesting on a lower level. He's higher than the worlds. Yes, it's the b'chinas levush levat. Shemitzantzim asu kavyachol yismelch al am lekabel mehem kesem malchus. That he kavyachol, so to speak, concealed himself to be a king on the nation on these lower levels, and to receive from them the crown, the king's crown. Like when it says, we'll give you the crown of the king. He needs our crown. But that's how he's manifesting in the levush. That's on that level, through our bit layesh, by us subjugating ourselves to him, we bring down that level. But the way he's on his own, he's exalted on his own. All these expressions are showing he's a melech independent of us. That's what we say, kved malchus. That's what means kved malchus. Kved malchuscha yemeru, when you say kved malchuscha, what's kved malchuscha? That's the kved malchuscha, that's the honor of the kingship on the core level, that's beyond. That's on its own level, not relative. So what we see here is, so that we're crowning God is the same thing, like he said with a person. It's there be'etzem. He has it. But then when he manifests on lower levels, we reveal it even on the lower levels. Now in Kesem Achos, which is the general idea of exaltation and beyond Remus. And how do you say Remus? Well, yes, b'zegam kim b'derech prat beis min ha'isnasus sanal. V'hein beis madrigas b'kesem malchus. Now he's going back to Atik and Arich, the whole thing we spoke about, Hod and Hodar. So now in Malchus itself, you have two levels. And these are the two levels of Keser Malchus. Ha'echot Keser Malchus ha'sorim va'am neisnim al reish ha'melech. What? Neisnim. What?
No, Remus is like loftiness.
Yeah. The first is the crown of the king that the Sorim, the ministers, and the nation place on his head, on the head of the king. Through this he becomes a king upon them, an exalted and a type of authority over them. And a second element in Keser Malchus, and the crown of the king, is that he has from an inheritance from his parents, from his fathers, of Yilabish. That they take the crown of that was on his father's head, and now you put it on his head. Gamhu memelav hu in shakeser hu moseh. Yeah, right. I'm sorry. Right, Yilbash gam hu mel. Right, you're right. That crown that was on the head of his father, Yilbash gam hu mel, he automatically wears it, not because the nation crowns him. For hu in shakeser hu moseh. That the Kesser fit him perfectly. So it says that the Kesser, when there was the right Melech, the Kesser adjusted itself to fit. I mean, without someone else's effort. So we see a deeper level. This is Isnasas Atzmi. So it's not relative that he's appointed by, and as that is on that lower level. But on his own, he's a fundamental core exaltation. On his own, he's roi, he's worthy to this kingship. That means a keser hol maseh. The keser fits him, because if it wasn't worthy, then the keser would be in someone else's crown. Why is it on his head? Here, automatically, it becomes his. In other words, it's related to him fundamentally. What's the translation of hol maseh? Fitting? Fitting, right? Fits. Heilamte, that's how you pronounce it? Remember? Not hol maseh? You sure? I remember the Rebbe saying Kol Moshe. Okay, but Holamte is the word. What's the root shadish of Holamte? Holam. Okay. Holamte. Shakesher Holamte. Holmos. I always thought it was Holmos. How did you translate? Holamte. V'zeu gam kinin heid malchus sheroi be'etzem l'reim mazu. And this is also heid malchus, heid, not hadar. That he's worthy be'etzem, fundamentally, to this exalted state. Ve'ein tzarech laskama muzulase. It doesn't need someone else's endorsement. Klal or klal, at all. being because he's fundamentally and he's a king because of his own state of Reimamus. Now he's going back to Shleim, and this is what it means that it placed on that. Like Shleim says, Vayitna love is placed upon him. Heid Malchus, shekulam hikirushu hagen lemeluchim etzadatzme. What he said for Mitzudas David. Everybody recognized that he was worthy on his own. Because of his own fundamental hisnasus. That came to him from the higher Malchus. But I have a question. He just said the second Malchus comes Yerushalayim Vesav.
If he's worthy.
Right, of course. So what they saw was that he wasn't just a son of David HaMelech. They saw on his own that he's worthy. So you could say there's three things here. One is the nation crowns you. That's on the lower level. There's if you're a son, you get something in Yerusha. But then there's something you have on your own. Yerusha doesn't... Because when they recognize in Shleima, they recognize it was on his... Yeah. But I'm saying there's three elements here. There's one, the nation crowns. There's one Yerusha that you actually get... That you could have... Well, you could take...
you could have not the Yerusha also. Yerusha means that...
But Yerusha is usually the first place you look. When you count the milk, you look if the son is Roy.
It has to be Yerusha. You have to be from Malchus David.
Yeah, but Yerusha, you could also say has two sides to it. Yerusha is not like Zulas. Yerusha is not... Hold on, 1 second. Yerusha... I'm leading to something. Yerusha, 1 second, listen to the point. Yerusha means two things. Yerusha is not Zulas. Yerusha doesn't mean you're getting it from someone else. Yerusha means you're actually getting the etzem from your father. Now, not everyone was right, not everyone was worthy. But bottom line is, Yerusha, the way he says it's the second level, because you could say the same argument. 1 second. The nation is crowning him, and here, he's also not doing it on his own. He's got it as an inheritance. But the inheritance is the Atzmi. He's getting Malchus de Le'ela as an inheritance.
Because otherwise the Yerusha doesn't have score.
Right, exactly. That's why, if he's not Roi, the din is, when you look for the new king after the king dies, you look for a son.
But he has to be Roi.
Right, exactly. So he needs to have the son, because if he's Roi, then he has Malchus de Le'ela. If he's not, he's just a son. I'm just pointing it out here. So when they saw in Shleima, what they saw was that he's also Roi. Besides being a son of David. And that means he has it on his own. And Keser, Helamte, is a sign. Because if it wouldn't fit him, it would mean he doesn't have it on his own. It's only, in other words, you can't just take your father's crown and stick it on your head. You have to have...
David had other children.
Right, that's what I'm saying. That's the whole pasuk. That's why it says Vayitin.
Didn't have any boys that were Roy. That's why they went to 77.
First of all, I would be careful when you speak about that. You got that from an authority, or are you saying this in your own thoughts?
His sons were very gay people.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say one Roy. Maybe not Roy for the Rebbe's the Rebbe. That's it. Yeah, but be careful when you make such statements, because unless the Rebbe said that, you weren't there. So how do you know? So I'm saying no. I wouldn't put it that way at all. A Rebbe's a Rebbe.
It could be also when it's not a Yerusha, when the Tzemach didn't want to accept.
The Baal Shem Tov's son also gave it to them. The Baal Shem Tov's son gave it to the Maggid after, because, yeah. We're not talking here who's not worthy. We're talking about who is worthy. We're not talking about...
said to the Alter Rebbe, is he going to be my... what was his son-in-law? He said, is that aggressive idea? Such a...
I'm not sure.
The Mittel Rebbe said that he's going away, so the Chassidim told him, "Rebbe lost the one." So he says, "My Rebbe is lost."
Let me just finish this thing. Okay, so 1 second. So what do we got here? So this is what the Mitzudas David said. That came from the higher Malchus. That's the difference between Heid Malchus, Lahadar Malchus, the Heid and Malchus Mitzad Etzem. Heid is Malchus the way it's on its core level. For Hadar Malchus, Hadar Malchus, Mashabom in Am. That is what comes from the nation. That's already how it extends, and the Snasus and is above, superior to the nation. Like it says, Berev Am, the multitude of the nation is the king's honor. Hadras Melech, the beauty of the king, when there are many people there. Obviously, the many people do not make him king and do not add to his core, so it's clearly on the outer. The hidur ba min ha'am. The hidur, meaning that the expression of his leadership. The king shows up, no one's there, doesn't take away from his core malchus, but it's not revealed. It's not revealed. There's a lot of people there, that's the Hadras Melech. But it's not that a lot of people make him king, it's that they reveal his kingship in expressed level on Biyah, as he said, Bri, Yitzir, and so on. The Hoid Malchus ain't a Toli B'Reivam. Hoid Malchus, on the other hand, there's the core essence is not dependent on the nation, on the many people in the Reivam, on the large number of people. Shagam b'miyutam, b'gam b'loyam, even with a few miyutam, even a small nation, or no nation at all, Kamosh HaMelech be'echole, as the king is in his own chamber, in his own Yeshiv al Kisim Achusi, he sits on the throne. Yachaliyas Hoid Melech be'etzim. You could have that Hoid Melech, that glow, that what we called before, that majesty on his own. Kamei b'Melech b'Yofi Tachzeno. Because that's Tachzene Necha. So there's, like it says, Melech b'Yofi, a king in his beauty, Tachzena, you will see with your eyes. But he's pointing out here, the point is not that you see it, that's not what makes him beautiful. Because he's beautiful, that's why you see it. Not you will perceive the beauty. Right, that's why he doesn't say Enecha, because Enecha is already the people, but the bottom line is he has it on his own. He has it on his own even when no one's around.
The night of Rosh Hashanah, before we crown the
king. Aval Hadras Melech hu b'Reiv Am Dafke. But Hadras Melech, the expression of it is b'Reiv Am Dafke, when there's a large group of people. The Hainu b'Ribui his pashus, meaning in a riba, multitude of extension. The Kol Mashayir Ba'am, the more the people, the greater the nation. Yeser, Yam Kol Am Yeser, Kol Mashayir Ba'am Yeser. The more that there's a amount of people, the more people there are. Yeser Yir b'Zeh Hadras Melech, the more respect and honor is for the king. Or b'Yeser, you could almost say, I think maybe the word majesty and honor is good words. Because honor suggests someone's honoring someone.
Your Highness.
Yeah, and whereas majesty, you have the majesty even if you're not being recognized. You have it because you fundamentally have it. But the interesting thing is the nation does evoke it, does reveal it, even if you have it on your own. That's the crowning. So it's not just two separate things. It's not just they have it on the core level, and then it also extends. The nation also brings out the core. They bring it out.
Majestic you are by yourself.
Maybe there's two types of kings: people who have it, and then they reveal it, or people who don't have it, but when they're crowned, they able to gidzei malmaila. You could say two types of kingship.
Every king needs both.
Yeah. Okay.
Majestic is somebody by himself, you're saying.
I'm using the word majesty it exudes from his core, and hadar would be how it's expressed or how it's seen. It fits. I mean, he brought all these rayas. I mean, this is full of rayas and hayd v'hadar here. And this honor of the king is even greater, and more so when it's from different types of people, and separate from one another. If it's all one big clones, like a cult, everybody's like one type. Even though there are many of them, it's not as beautiful. It's not as it's only when they're very different types of people, because that shows the truth of it. If everyone's the same, okay, these type of people, they like this guy. But for different people, and they come together, like the soldiers of the king, the army. If they're all one type, even if there's many as the sand on the water at the beach, grains of sand, it's not yet the beauty of the king, the honor of the king. This is very good. This I have a lot to say about.
Yeah, no, but
so,
that's but he's actually not going the direction of people. He's saying different.
Here. So if everybody's the type and running after the same Rebbe,
He gives an example.
Yeah, then it's not. But if they're very different, they're different types of people. Then you have meaning like soldiers the soldiers that ride on different types of harechvim become mini kazan.
The
cavalry.
That they have different types.
But the cavalry on horses.
Yeah, with swords.
And they're riding the
Okay, because like the cavalry that ride with different types of arms, different type of weapons. Ele b'charovis ve'ele b'kashosis v'chitzim. So charovis is swords, kashosis are bows, and now chitzim are spears.
It's interesting that he used it because he lived in a town that was guns.
What? Chitzim are spears. Swords, bows, and spears. V'chein b'chayol haraglayim. That's now the infantry. Rechvim are the people on the infantry, those that go with their feet. And they're different in garments, with chunosam, and in their personalities. And each one serves the king according to his way. They don't change, they don't alter from their positions. And when they all come together and they gather, the kavod hamelech, for the honor of the king, the kavod melech zeh, this king bekach, right, the kavod melech zeh bekach, this one in his way, v'zeh bekach, and this one in his way, each one demonstrating their own particular skills and differences. Ozu dafke hadras melech. Then you see the beauty, the greatness, the beauty of the king, the honor of the king. V'hainu kanal the heid melech udavar atzmi. So this is like we said earlier, because heid melech, that's a core thing. She'em b'zeh ischalkus klal, that has no distinctions. For Hadar Melech, Hadar Melech hu in Spashtus v'izgalas hamlucha. So now we're talking about Hadar Melech. This, all of them gathering, doesn't affect who he is in his core level, but you want revelation, the expression of his kingship is when you see the multitude of diverse individuals all honoring the same king. Spashtus v'izgalas hamlucha. V'chol ha'izpashtus sheyesh bo yischalkus. And everything that extends has in it distinctions. And when you have distinctions, it could also be divisiveness. But when you have distinctions and they come together, harmony within diversity, we've discussed that as teferes, then you have hidur. Then you have beauty. Because you have so many different and they all come together, then that creates a true glory. I'll finish already. An example for this in the higher kingship, we said before, Kved Hadar Malchusei, which is the honor and the beauty of his kingship. That's already the extension of how God, the divine, extends his kingship. The way he's exalted over the nation, that comes in details. You say Melech Muhul b'Tishbachis. The king is praised showered with praise. With praises. B'mini Tishbachis. Rabbis. With many different types of praise. You don't just say you're great. We say it in so many different ways. B'nesham is right. B'nesham is by the souls of Malachim. B'kol achad v'echad lefi medragose. Both souls and kings. This is the example of when you have a parade for the king. He's giving the example in Ruchnis, where everybody from different backgrounds are all coming to say different praises. Everyone at their level. Like we say, what's in the language of the Chassidim are the neshamas, avodav, the servants are neshamas and malachim, souls and angels. So you see clearly that you're seeing different types of lashon, different types of expressions. There's many levels. Not only different levels in categories, there's many levels in each category. Like Machne Mechal, the camp of the Malach Mechal, Ba'ava, that's with love, Chesed. V'yesh ba kuf pei elef machnes, and it has in it 180,000 in camps. Umala Gavriel b'yira, and Gavriel is Gvura Gvira, that serves and is honoring God through Yira. V'chein b'neshama, that's Malach. The same thing in soul. Zeh Evid b'Ava Zeh b'Yira. This one serves through love. This one serves through awe and respect. U'ki'idua b'inyan Zayaneda Samaneda, like known in the Zayaneda 7 candles, the 7 branches of the Meneda. Sheyesh b'Zeh Madregas Rabbis Me'ed Aden Shir. That have in it really many levels without end. It breaks into 7 categories. U'b'Yisasav Kulam Yachad Shifti Yisrael Lamata What do you say? Vahi b'shur and melech. So when the Shavdim come, when they come all together, Shifti Yisrael, the tribes of Israel, Lamata below, Umalachim Lamaila, and the Malachim above, the fire of the Yitzram, to praise and what's it called? And there's a word, glorify. The fire of the Yitzram to their Yitzr, to their creator, their shaper, V'hainu b'chol yom Beis Atfil, which is every day during davening. Shekol echad echad mahalu m'shabach l'kadosh baruch hu, that everyone praises and the Myers, Mahalal. It's different types of prayer. Mahalal Meshabach. How do you translate Hillel with Tishbachis? You say praise and honor and admire.
I think they're different forms.
Like Kadosh Baruch Hu, to God. Kafi Muhusa Madreigis Yosei, davening. Everyone on their Muhus, their personality, and their level praises God in a different way. Zeh b'chinas Hadras Melech. That brings out Hadras Melech, the revelation of the kingship. The Kol Zeh b'chinas is Pashtus Se'er. That's all the extension of energy. Al b'chinas Atzmus Ein Sof Ksiv Neder Tehillah Sheyireim Lahalei. We talk about that core divine energy, the way the Melech is on his own, and without the need for anyone else praising or saying anything. You say Neder Tehillah Sheyireim Lahalei. They're afraid even. Neder Tehillah is they're afraid even of saying his praise, because they're so beyond him, they won't be in his presence. Which means that it will be silent. Dame from the word dame.
Dumio is a praise for you.
Yeah, to you, my praise is I'm silent. I can't even say any praise. Basically, I step.
To you, the Dumio is the tehillah. The silent is the praise.
Right. So, yeah. So silent because you can't even express it because it's so beyond expression. Ultimate bittul. There's no levels at all. Because this is in the core that has no levels at all. That's why also in the bittul has no distinctions. And this is the level of Heid Malchus. This also explains why Hoid is from the word Heidah, acknowledgement. We're not talking about Hashvach. Hadar is a praise. Heidah just means acknowledge. It's not. You can't even say in a Hillel V'Shach. You can't even say a praise or a description. Kim Heidah levad. It's just acknowledgement alone. Now, Moedim, I stand basically in silence, in silent acknowledgement of you, to your core. Umahalim l'chol Hashem tifartecha.
The moedim is
l'shem tifartecha. Yeah, exactly. Umahalim, and the praise is only l'shem tifartecha, to the name, to the expression of your beauty. B'chinas eir v'ziv u'b'chinas ispashtus. To the energy, that the reflection and that extends. So he answered the question. Still more going to talk about it more. He answered the question: how can you say in Ayin Sof? He said, they could say there's a revelation. So he right now showed how there's a revelation that's higher than Kalim, because you're standing in the presence of Keser, but you're acknowledging it. That acknowledgement, that expression that breaks into details, is a Gili. Whereas the core of Ayin Sof, now he's gone even so. So you have Behirus. This is Sfiras from the word Behirus in Etzem Ha'er. Till now we were saying it was in the Kalim, it was in the Primis Kalim, it was in energy, in Atzilus. Now he went and said it's in the Eira Bligvul. So he said, how in Eira Bligvul is their expression? It's the core. So he said, now he showed that there's two levels. There's the core beyond expression, and there's the core that expresses how it's a form of expression.
We spoke about Eir L'Shefa, that in Oyer there are two things. There is the Oyer Kemoi Shola Atzmoi, the Tafkid.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Ubir Ha'inyan, the Ksiv Heid v'Hodr Lavashta. It says Heid v'Hodr Lavashta, both Heid and Hodr. Heid Etzem Ha'er. Heid, the glory, the majesty, is the core energy. For Hodr is Galus, and the beauty is really the expression of the majesty. It's like Heid B'nei Adam, when a person's face has that glow, that's from his general core. From his general, there's no details. And when you say someone thinks muhudir, you say his details, the way he behaves, is meticulous and muhudir and deliberate and beautiful in its details. Heid Malchus is the way he's the Melech is Be'etzem. The king is on his own, from his own. Shenimshach comes from Malchus of above. Obalei Ma'avesov Da'keser Holamte. And it comes from his parents, fathers, because the Keser fits him. That's his core, essential, exalted state. Independent of and unrelated to, and not of anyone else. And that's where the real awe of the king is. That comes automatically. That's why he has it even when there's no nation. The beauty of his kingship is already the crowning and the receiving of his kingship. That's already how he is superior or leading the nation. That's why Berev Hadras Melech, because it's the Hadras. We're not talking about the king alone doesn't need Revam. Many people. And all the diversity he spoke about. Same thing Hashem El Geis Lovish, that he dresses it up as a garment. Geis is Lovish and Lavush. That's how he's over the world. That's an extension. And the praise of the angels and the souls is all about his expressed majesty. Then there's the Melech as he's exalted beyond on his own. And that you say Neder Tehillis. We're in awe even of saying any praise. Dumer Tehillah. And that is also Heid, it's just acknowledgement of something greater. Okay, so we did chapter 122, page 236 through 238.